The room fell silent when the President of the United States, Barack Obama, leaned forward and spoke a name that no one had expected to hear. Ibrahim Traoré. The audience, filled with diplomats, journalists, and world leaders, exchanged confused glances. But as Obama spoke, the weight of his words began to settle in like a thunderclap. His vision for Africa, his vision for our world. It will change the future. Introduction and setup. It was a warm spring morning in Washington, D.C., the kind of day that seemed too perfect to be true. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of fresh rain mixed with the perfume of blooming jasmine. Inside the prestigious Hall of Diplomacy, a large room filled with mahogany-paneled walls and grand windows stretching toward the sky, the world's most influential figures gathered. But this wasn't a typical diplomatic meeting. There was something different in the air. The usual polished faces of politicians and media moguls carried a rare tension, a sense of anticipation. All eyes were on President Obama. Ibrahim Traoré, the Prime Minister of Burkina Faso, stood at the back of the room, observing quietly. A former military leader, he had risen to power not through the usual corridors of politics but through a struggle rooted in resilience, faith, and a desire to see his country rise from the ashes of corruption. His dark eyes, heavy with experience, scanned the room. For a moment he felt a strange heaviness on his chest. This wasn't just another speech or meeting. This was a moment he had never expected. Obama's voice broke the tension. Ibrahim Traoré understands something we need to hear, he began, quoting him. A nation's true strength comes from its people, not from the wealth in its soil but from the spirit in its heart. The words struck Ibrahim like a bolt of lightning. He had never imagined hearing his name on the lips of such a man. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on him. He had been fighting for his people for years for the chance to restore their dignity and empower them to break free from the chains of past oppression. But now, on the global stage, the world was listening, conflict or challenge introduced. As the applause died down, President Obama's gaze swept across the room, resting on Ibrahim. Today we stand at a crossroads, he said, his voice firm but filled with compassion. We have the opportunity to change the trajectory of not only Africa but the world. Ibrahim Traoré's leadership is proof that when we give power back to the people, the future belongs to all of us. The room shifted again, the crowd absorbing every word, yet there was a stir of discomfort in the air. A few world leaders exchanged hushed words, clearly uneasy with Obama's endorsement of the young African leader. We cannot ignore that the past has been built on certain structures, one murmured to another. The system is in place. Is it wise to disrupt it? Ibrahim, standing alone in the crowd, felt the weight of this subtle opposition. He knew that his path had not been easy. He had fought not only for his people but against the deeply rooted global systems of inequality that had kept his nation down. And now, in this pivotal moment, the world seemed to be questioning whether the future could truly be shaped by someone who came from the very place they sought to control. Midpoint revelation or twist. Obama continued, unshaken. And yet, we know that change is inevitable. It is our duty to lead it, not to cling to the old systems that serve only the few. As these words echoed, Ibrahim's thoughts wandered back to the days of hardship he had faced before, the night he had risked everything, his own life and the future of his country, to stand up against the forces of corruption. The twists of fate had been harsh and many had turned their backs on him. He had lost his family, his friends, and his peace. But he had never lost his belief that the people of Burkina Faso could rise. Now, in the midst of this grand international assembly, it was Obama's words, not just his endorsement, that moved Ibrahim. If one man can change the destiny of an entire nation, then what can we do together? The twist was not just in the fact that Obama had quoted him. It was in the recognition that, in this moment, Ibrahim's fight for Africa's future had become the world's fight. His struggle for sovereignty, dignity, and independence was no longer a solitary battle, but a beacon for every nation striving for a better tomorrow. Climax, emotional breakthrough. Ibrahim stood taller, the weight of his journey suddenly seeming lighter. The applause, though polite at first, began to swell. But it wasn't just a crowd's approval that filled the room. It was the stirring realization that Ibrahim's fight was no longer just for Burkina Faso, but for every man, woman, and child who had been oppressed by systems far older and more powerful than they had ever known. In that moment, Obama turned to him, their eyes locking in a silent exchange. No words were necessary. Ibrahim understood. This wasn't just about policy or diplomacy. It was about the future of humanity, a future where dignity and equality would no longer be a privilege but a right. Obama's voice softened, almost as though speaking directly to Ibrahim now. The road ahead won't be easy, but you've shown us that even in the face of impossible odds, the strength of one can ignite the power of many. Resolution and quiet closure. The conference ended, and the crowd dispersed. But Ibrahim's heart remained heavy, not with the weight of the moment, but with the responsibility that now rested on his shoulders. He had been thrust into a global spotlight, but the challenges were far from over. Later that evening, as Ibrahim walked alone along the Potomac River, the setting sun painted the sky in shades of orange and purple. He paused, looking out at the water, as if searching for answers in its endless flow. What was he meant to do with this newfound recognition? How could one man, no matter how determined, change the course of history? The quiet hum of the city around him faded as his thoughts settled on Obama's final words. You're not broken. You're becoming. Call to action if this story touched your heart. Consider subscribing for more inspiring tales of hope, healing, and unexpected kindness. Hit the like button and share this with someone who needs it today. Let's stand together in the pursuit of a better tomorrow.